At the edge of the savannah, where thornbush met open grassland, the cries of a leopard cub rose thin and sharp into the evening air. Its mother had vanished, driven off by hunters, or perhaps killed by a stronger rival. Alone, the cub was nothing more than a fragile shadow of life, its rosetted coat trembling with each weak breath, its calls carrying like a dinner bell to the predators that roamed nearby. The first to answer was not help, but hunger. A jackal slunk from the brush, eyes glinting, nose twitching, then another circling, their sharp bodies weaving closer. The cub hissed weakly, stumbling as it tried to stand, its claws too small, its body too frail. It was the end until the earth itself seemed to rumble. A hyena burst from the shadows. Her spotted coat glistened in the fading light, her massive jaws bared in a growl that sent the jackals scattering like leaves in wind. Her yellow eyes flicked to the cub, then back to the brush, ears swiveling for threats. She was no ordinary scavenger tonight. Something deeper stirred, a pull she couldn't resist, though it defied her kind's reputation. Instead of snapping the cub's neck, as instinct urged, she lowered her head. The leopard cub whimpered, pressing against the earth, but the hyena only sniffed, then nudged it gently with her muzzle. The sound she made was low, almost soothing. Not predator, but protector. She stood over the cub, her powerful frame forming a shield as the night grew darker, daring anything to come close. For hours she remained. When a vulture swooped too low, she snapped at it. When hyenas from her own clan called in the distance, she ignored them. The cub pressed itself against her leg, trembling but no longer alone. By dawn, the impossible had taken root. A leopard cub had found a guardian in the very creature most feared by its kind. The days that followed rewrote the law of the wild. The hyena brought scraps from kills, bones heavy with marrow, strips of meat scavenged from lion feasts. She stood guard while the cub fed, licking its face clean as if it were her own pup. The cub, in turn, learned to follow her, padding behind her massive paws as though she were its mother. The savannah noticed. Lions gave wide berth, unsettled by the sight of predator and predator bound in such strange companionship. Jackals no longer dared circle. Even vultures waited further away, their patience tested. For the first time, the cub thrived, not under the care of its kind, but under the protection of an unlikely ally. But with each passing day, questions stirred like dust in the wind. How long could such a bond last? When the cub grew strong, would its instincts betray the hyena, or would this alliance, born in the shadows of survival, endure long enough to reshape the rhythm of the wild? Weeks rolled into months, and the leopard cub grew beneath the shadow of its unlikely guardian. What once had been a fragile, trembling creature was now a young predator, its body filling out with muscle, rosettes gleaming dark against golden fur. Yet while its instincts sharpened, it had learned its earliest lessons not from a leopard, but from a hyena. It scavenged what she scavenged, padded after her in patient silence, and even mimicked her habit of pausing to sniff the air with lifted muzzle before moving into open ground. The bond between them deepened. With each trial the wild threw their way. One dry season night, a lioness prowled near their hollow, her hunger heavy in the air. The cub froze, belly pressed to the earth, eyes wide. The hyena, however, met the intruder head-on. She bristled, jaws clacking, laughter rising into the night in a fierce challenge. The lioness advanced, muscles coiled to strike, but the cub, emboldened by the presence of its protector, growled with surprising force, a rumble beyond its years. Together they stood, and together they drove the lioness back, the hyena snapping at her heels until she vanished into the dark. The cub was no longer just her ward, it was her partner. Yet whispers spread across the savannah. Other hyenas noticed the strange pair. Some followed from a distance, curious. Others snarled with hostility, seeing betrayal in her devotion to another species. One evening, her clan confronted her, circling in restless agitation. The cub pressed close to her flank, uncertain but unwilling to retreat. The air thickened with tension, but when the hyenas lunged, she fought with a ferocity that stunned even her kin. Her teeth slashed, her body a wall of defiance. The young leopard added his claws to hers, striking with speed and precision. When the dust settled, the clan scattered, unwilling to pay the price of testing her resolve. From that night forward, they were left alone. The cub, however, was changing. His body lengthened, his paws now heavy with power, his eyes holding a hunger his guardian could not ignore. At dawn, she sometimes caught him watching antelope move across the plain, his muscles twitching with instinct. He still scavenged with her, still pressed his muzzle into her fur when the night was cold, but something in him stirred, the call of blood, the pull of the predator he was born to be. And then, one fateful day, their bond faced its most dangerous trial yet. A pack of wild dogs, desperate and relentless, swarmed the grassland, closing in on the cub while he drank from a shallow waterhole. The hyena hurled herself into the fray, her laughter rising into a war cry, but the pack's numbers were overwhelming. For the first time she faltered, the cub's instincts ignited. He sprang, a blur of rosettes and claws, striking with a ferocity that stunned the attackers. Shoulder to shoulder, hyena and leopard tore through the chaos, sending the wild dogs scattering. But when the dust cleared, the hyena's flank bore deep wounds and she staggered, blood darkening her spotted coat. The cub circled her, whining, nudging her with desperate urgency, refusing to leave her side. It was in that moment that the savannah itself seemed to hold its breath, predator and predator, bound not by blood but by something far more enduring. Survival had forged them together, but love, strange and undeniable, had kept them so. The seasons turned, and with them the cub shed the last traces of his youth. No longer small and vulnerable, he had grown into a magnificent leopard, his shoulders broad, his movements silent as drifting shadows, his amber eyes sharp with the authority of a hunter. The hyena, by contrast, carried the weight of years and battles across her scarred body. Her gait was slower now, her once piercing laughter hoarse from age, yet her will to guard him remained unbroken. Together, they had carved out an unclaimed corner of the savannah, an invisible boundary few dared to cross. Lions skirted their territory, jackals watched from a distance, and even vultures seemed hesitant to circle overhead. To the other creatures of the plains, they had become a legend in flesh, a spotted queen and her golden-shadowed son, bound by something no rule of nature could explain. But the leopard was restless. His blood pulled him towards solitude, to climb the rocks and stalk the rivers, to claim a territory of his own. He began hunting more often, slipping into the night to take down antelope or hare with ease, leaving the remains for her. It was a reversal. The protector now provided for the one who had once shielded him. Yet he never stayed away long. No matter how far he roamed, each dawn found him returning to her side, pressing his massive head against her neck in a gesture that carried both gratitude and love. Still, the day came when choice could not be postponed. A rival leopard appeared, an older male, scarred and dominant, prowling into their shared land with a roar that shook the dry air. The young leopard met him head-on, instincts demanding that he claim his own fate. The hyena stood back, eyes burning, knowing this was not her battle. The fight was brutal. Claws tore through flesh, roars echoed like thunder, dust rose in choking clouds. The hyena paced at the edge, her heart straining, her body quivering with the urge to leap in. But this was his trial, not hers. At last, the younger leopard drove the rival away, bloodied but victorious. He had taken his place in the order of the wild. Afterward he returned to her, panting, his body streaked with wounds, but his spirit unbroken. He nuzzled her once more, a farewell written in silence. She licked his face, her tongue rasping across his scars, as though she could hold him to her side forever. But she knew the truth. The wild had called him home. That night, he vanished into the darkness. He did not return at dawn. The hyena waited, days blending into nights. She wandered the edges of their hollow, ears pricking at every rustle, heart leaping at every distant roar. Yet she knew in her bones that he had gone to claim the life that had always been his. And though sorrow pressed against her, pride burned brighter. She had kept him alive, guided him, given him the chance to stand as more than an orphaned cry in the grass. But the story did not end with his departure, for the savannah soon learned that though he ruled as a leopard, he remained unlike any other. His kills were shared with her clan when they grew desperate. His roars carried not only dominance, but warning, keeping rivals from the land where his hyena mother still wandered. And at night, when the moon swelled bright, those who listened swore they heard two voices twine across the plains, the laugh of a hyena, answered by the deep rumble of a leopard. The bond had not broken. It had only transformed, echoing across the wilderness as a legend, the cub who grew into a king, and the hyena who taught him love before he ever learned the art of the hunt. Years later, the story of the hyena and the leopard cub had drifted far beyond the plains where it began. Around fires in the villages, elders told it with reverence, their voices low, as if afraid the wind itself might carry the words back to the spirits of the savannah. Children leaned close, eyes wide, as they listened to the tale of how the fiercest scavenger had chosen not to kill but to protect, and how that single choice had reshaped the life of a predator destined for solitude. Hunters spoke of sightings, a great leopard, his rosetted coat gleaming like molten gold, often seen near an old scarred hyena. They did not hunt them, for fear and wonder bound their hands. Some claimed the leopard left offerings of prey for her, laying antelope carcasses near her den as if he still carried the role of provider she had once held for him. Others swore they heard them together at night, the eerie cackle of a hyena rising, answered by the rolling rumble of a leopard's roar, blending into a harmony that no one could mistake for coincidence. The hyena grew old, her muzzle pale, her laughter weaker, but still defiant. When she finally passed, she did not die alone. Tracks in the dust told the story, great paw prints circling her body, pacing, waiting, mourning. For days afterward, villagers claimed to hear the cries of a leopard that were not roars of power, but wails of grief, echoing across the empty plains. In time, her bones returned to the earth, and grass grew tall over her resting place. Yet the leopard lingered. He carved his territory around that ground, defending it fiercely from rivals, as if the soil itself was sacred. No predator, not lion nor dog, dared tread there, and so her memory lived not only in story but in the land itself, guarded by the very cub she had once saved. Generations passed, but the tale endured. It became more than a story of animals. It became a parable of mercy. Parents told their children that strength is not only in teeth and claws, but in the courage to protect the helpless, even when instinct whispers otherwise. And in the hush of night, when the winds move through the thorn trees, some still say they hear it, laughter and roaring woven together, proof that bonds born of love outlast even death. Thus the legend ends, as it always does. Somewhere in the vast savannah, beneath the eternal sky, a leopard still walks with the heart of a hyena.